Hello. My name is George. I'm a producer here at How To Academy, and it's such a pleasure to see such a full house. So thank you so much for joining us. As a producer, I get to do the fun housekeeping bits, which is just to say that copies of Slavoj's book, Quantum Theory, are available for sale out there, and we're delighted that Slavoj will be joining us after the show to cite, and he'll be doing that around here. So please make sure you form an orderly line, focus on the orderly, focus on the line part of that down here after the show. A man that doesn't really need much of an introduction. You know who he is: philosophical rock star, consummate joker, film star, and the author of books including On Progress, Too Late to Awaken, Quantum Theory, and we're delighted that he's joining us for another show. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about this, and we are delighted as well that he'll be in conversation with Alex O'Connor, who is the podcaster, video maker, better known often as Cosmic Skeptic. So please join me in giving them a huge round of applause and enjoy the conversation. Thanks.
Go ahead. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
This is for you.
That's for me, yeah. We're going to try and stick to the rules time-wise. We've already broken one rule because we seem to have swapped names, but I'm sure no one's particularly confused. Slavoj, how are you? How is it being back in London?
Well, I'm unfortunately still alive, but getting close to it. No, seriously, I wonder if you have the same attitude as me. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of long dying, slow. Mm-hmm. This makes a point, maybe really. I spoke with a professor in New York who was old one, who was there when Hannah Arendt was dying. Mm-hmm. And it was ideal. She invited people to her home. They were talking, and she was like in a hotel like this, put the head down, dozed off a little bit, then she reawakened, talked a little bit, fell asleep to go, reawakened, then fell asleep and didn't awaken. That was it. Isn't this wonderful? Sorry, let's go on. But
well, I actually, of course, we'll do questions at the end, which people are submitting with the QR code. One of the questions was already that we've had about how you deal with death as an atheist materialist. And we were talking upstairs, and it seems like our biggest point of overlap is our interest in theology. And perhaps that's a good place to start. You consider yourself, what, an atheist materialist? Would you call yourself that?
yeah, no, it's a very precise term. I would love to explain it, although I would like to avoid repeating myself too much. I think it can be put in very simple, short terms, very briefly. I define myself as Christian atheist. Mm-hmm. Atheist, absolutely. None of that stuff, maybe is, maybe God is not. I'm also absolutely not that Richard Dawkins approach, how do they call themselves, cultural Christians. Like the idea is we know there is no God, but nonetheless, among the existing ethical, moral orders, Christianity is relatively the best. No, it's much more precise. First, my definition of atheism is not simply there is no God. Yes, it's parts of it, of course. But if you ask people or a person, do you believe in God or no? Sorry, you may have noticed I have even a little bit of temperature, so be patient. It's a very complex question. You should know this as skeptic, Although when the people took over, it will be end of, yes. You will have to say communism or not. No skepticism there. It's Gulag or a seat in Moscow. Sorry. Let's go on quite more seriously, I promise. For me, crucial is here the debate which defines this best between, I quote it in my Christian Atheism book at the beginning, between Einstein and Niels Bohr. Einstein, with all respect for him, defined himself as a Spinoza. He said, of course, there is no personal God, blah, blah. But when you look at the universe from a proper scientific distance, you see the wonderful harmony of all of it. And this gives you a satisfactory feeling to some kind of a almost religious experience, divine order, and so on. And this is how also Einstein grounded his famous thesis against quantum physics. God doesn't play dice, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know what is, I repeated it a couple of times in my work, Niels Bohr's answer.
Yes.
It is, don't tell God what to do. This is not a theological statement. The point is that for me, the fundamental religious stance is precisely, and I'm sorry if you know this line of thought, but I think it's crucial, it's precisely this idea that truth does not reside in this global perspective. Let's see it in totality. For me, the worst of Christianity or any other global religious approach is this metaphor which even today is often used. Like, if you think you are seeing something horrible, this is like looking at a painting, great painting, from too close. Imagine, I'm sorry for the vulgar case, imagine, vulgar in the sense of everybody knows it, Mona Lisa. If you look at it from 1 inch or closer, you see just a stain. If you withdraw back, you will see that this, what appeared to you as stain, ethical evil, whatever, contributes to global harmony. I think that, for me, the way I read Christianity, it renounces exactly this global perspective, what Lacanians would have called the big other. This idea that no matter how confused things appear to us, all the horrors in our daily experience, globally it's a harmonious totality. That's why, but we did it yesterday here, we don't have to go to one, that's my interest in quantum physics. The basic point is that precisely there is no totality which is elevated above the texture of reality. Every totality, every unity, every view of all of it is partial. But let me just conclude very quickly. So I think that why my obsession with Christianity as an atheist, because I think that what Christianity stages, the story of crucifixion and so on, as Hegel, who is my source here, put it, what dies on the cross is not a representative messenger of God, like God is up there, okay, let's send my son down to help people, okay, they crucified it, it didn't work, so come back to me, my son, we'll try again. No, what dies, Hegel says this, what dies on the cross is God of beyond itself. For Hegel, what dies on the cross is this very idea that there is some higher force. It doesn't have to be personal God. It can be, and in this sense, for me, Stalin is deeply religious. Not only he was when he was young. You know that Stalin, he wrote, when he was a young theological student, he wrote some short religious poems which became national treasures. People even don't know that Stalin wrote them. But what I want to say is that, you know why Stalin is still theological and Stalinism? Because it still has this faith of, no matter how horrible things are now, if you look at them from proper distance, you can somehow justify it. You can see that these are just small stains, but from a proper distance, you see that these stains contribute to global harmony. And this is why the most intelligent justification of Stalinist purges was written by a book published in 1946, I think, by Maurice Merleau-Ponty, the famous colleague of Sartre, then they split, called, I think, Humanism and Terror. His idea is that, yes, Stalinist terror is a horrible thing, but if the result of this terror will be a thriving, happy, new communist society, then retroactively it will be justified. For me, this is precisely what the death of Christ means and prohibits this stance. No, let's take 20th century. There are other horrors. In 21st century, let's take the standard name, colonization in modern era, or the Gulag, Auschwitz, and so on. Isn't it obscene to say, yeah, Auschwitz is a stain if you look too close at it, but from a proper distance, it contributes to global harmony. We feel an urge to do this, because I met in Israel years ago a group of Jews, a small sect, but not mega small, some 200,000 people, who try to read Holocaust in this way. Mm-hmm. It is that Jews got too satisfied with, living among Christians in the West, and God, in his infinite wisdom, organized Holocaust to remind them it's time for you to return home. But it's for me a crazy, very tragic position. For me, Christianity means first, and that's for me even at a mystical level. Here I'm not afraid to assume the term how he, by he I mean John Milbank, your great Orthodox Christian, he called me a mystical materialist. Yeah, why not? By this I mean that the experience that there is no big other, as Lacan would have put it, that is to say that there is no higher rational scheme that would somehow justify or enable us to locate, to provide meaning to horrors that are happening, we have to renounce this. It's not just bad news, because at the same time, it opens up a space for freedom, for free action. This is why I think the unique thing about Christianity is it's simply a story put in theological terms about how God dies, God precisely at this transcendental a priori strain which provides meaning to our lives. Even in Marxism, you usually find this. All the class struggle horrors, don't worry too much, oh, at the end, communism will come out of this. And we get Holy Spirit. That's what fascinates me, as I often debating with theological friends, and what, as I often like to say, what is Holy Spirit? It's the first form of Communist Party for me, in the sense of comrades. They are there, egalitarian community. You know, that's how I read Christ's famous words. You know, when they tell him, he's preaching in a tent, your family is out there, and he shows at people indoor and says, this is my family, my followers. It doesn't mean you have to hate your family. I think family stands here for the entire social hierarchic order. The idea of Holy Spirit is, you know, as St. Paul says, for me, there are no Jews or pagans, whatever term he used, there are no men and women and so on. We are just united in Christ. I think that this idea of a egalitarian community of comrades My good friend Jody Dean wrote a wonderful short book on the notion of comrade, trying to read it totally outside this usual notion of, comrade, communist, Stalinist. Comrade is somebody with whom you are not supposed to be friendly. You just share the commitment to a cause. So I think all this topic of second coming and so on, I think it's a vulgar misreading. I have a very Stalinist reading of Gospels. All that bullshit has to be censored, that as if Christ will really come. No, God is over. You can read, I don't know in which of the 4 Gospels, that when people ask Christ, some apostles, how will we know that you are back? He says, when there is a love among a couple of you, I am there. And I take this literally. So I read in this. Now you will say, I know, this is for me, sorry to insult you preemptively in advance, this is for me the idiot's question. But why don't you say this directly? Why do you need this detour through religion? My answer is because this trust into big other, which is for me the fundamental form of religion, in some higher cosmic order, it can be personal God or not. This is something that is not simply a historical sign of alienation and so on. It is something that pertains to our very symbolic order. When, as Lacan says, when you speak, you in some sense already believe. And I think that's how all radical theologians read the death of Christ. That this very basic theological structure, trust into the big other, disintegrates. It's a terrifying experience. Your world has to break down. And then from 0 point, you get Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit. I will not go into all these problems. But what I'm saying is that that would be my reading why I am a Christian atheist. Because it's not, you can be also a non-Christian atheist. I think to be truly an atheist, you have to go through this Christian experience of the death of God. If you don't go through it, then you are like standard communists and so on. Big other, some theological structure survives. And just to conclude, maybe this can bring us to political topic.
Sure.
For example, today, it's not just Gaza, Ukraine, whatever, the usual suspects. 2 of the recent news, which maybe you follow them, which really horrified me, where, I think Verso Books already published or not, a book called Scam, an analysis of what happens in that triangle, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand. There is there a gangster community, 10 of thousands people specialized in digital scam. They contact through the web people all around the world. On the one hand, trying to get some money for you, promising investment. On the other hand, erotic challenge, like ladies talk to you, send you their pictures, you again send them, blah, blah, blah. Okay, doesn't matter. What matters is this. Do you know what money we are talking here about? This small gangster triangle there turns around so much money that only 2 world economies turn around more money. United States and China. They're incredibly financially strong. Point two, they work through slaves. It's a direct slavery. Typical story, it was now fashionable, of a Belarusian girl, beautiful model. They told her a nice post to be a hostess, whatever, in Thailand. She landed there. They took her on a truck, went to that Myanmar camp. Then she was forced to seduce men via phone to work for 14 to 17 hours a day, and she had to fulfill a quota. After she didn't fill the quota, you get to another building. There you are kept chained, and they are gradually taking your body parts till you die, selling them. This is, again, are we aware this is what is happening? And it would be very difficult to justify it in any theological term. Or I read another thing. In southern Libya, many refugees from Sudan, Eritrea walk through to reach northern Libya to go across. Yes, what happens is that they are kidnapped when they walk alone through the desert. And again, we are not talking about 50 people. There are a couple of camps. Altogether, there are, people think, definitely over 10,000 people. They identify you, then they torture you in front of a camera, and they send to your family, which is already in Europe or there in Sudan. They say long clips regularly, every week, of how you are slowly tortured and dying. And then they say, if you don't send us money, he will die. Then, to add insult to injury, when you die, you get the last message. If you want the body, another 100,000. I mean, things happen like this. And for me, a proper Christian attitude is not, oh, everything will be at some point redeemed. No, I think the basic Christian attitude is the one I like things from good commercial movies. From time to time, you have a good line. In one of them, I forgot which one, I think even Brad Pitt plays in it, a guy who is basically not bad, but he's caught in a self-destructive mood. And when he finally dies, the priest says, what can we as Christians do in such a situation? You see somebody in a self-destructive mood. You could just say, I know you have your faith, I cannot do anything, but just this pure idea of being a passive witness, like I am here with you, no matter what you do. I think this, not some active salvation, is the basic attitude of Christianity. So my view is, again, it's very desperate. Along these lines, again, that's my basic position.
If your view is...
Counter-attack, please.
If your view... if it is that Christianity is not literally true, you don't sort of believe in the resurrection. In fact, you don't even think that's what Christianity is ultimately about. It's gone under the front just there.
Thanks. Yeah.
Earlier you said, you don't like this cultural Christianity thing, and I don't either, but I wonder if it's for different reasons, because I'm wondering what it is that separates you from such a view. I mean, they say, I don't think Christianity is true. I think there are some elements which, if rightly identified, provide a helpful sort of metaphor to allow us to all get along. It sounds like you're saying something not too dissimilar. So what is it that's different between your position and theirs?
But again, my point about Christianity is just, that's why I like Paul, the big one, Paul. Intelligent Christians, theologians, notice something. Paul is not interested at all in all the bullshit, what miracles Christ does, and so on. The basic message of Paul is Christ died on the cross. What does this mean? What comes before it's unimportant bullshit. So for me, in Christianity, we find even more than in Buddhism, I think, this idea of the big other doesn't exist. I don't find this in other religions. For example, in let's take a quick look at two other religions of the book, Judaism and Islam. Islam is simple in the sense that just Christ is celebrated there, but not as directly Son of God, which means God, but as another messenger of God.
Yes.
That doesn't interest me. God must die in my universe, not just stay up there. And then Judaism, what I find attractive in Judaism, you find many interesting things, is this idea of God as radical otherness. All my Lacavian Jewish friends, Jewish also in the sense of commitment to Jewish theology, claim this, that in Christianity there is still love. Love links you to God.
Yes.
Yeah, but only in Judaism, anxiety of the otherness. This God is an other who doesn't give you a clear answer. You never know what he means, and so on. But I think this is a wrong reading of Christianity. I think love that you get in Christianity, and now I will give you a surprise. You know with whom I now even co-published in Italian a book on? Padre Raffaele Nogaro, a big person in Vatican, where he goes into this openly. He said, you shouldn't love God. You should love your people around you. And God is this love itself. For him, the greatest sin is to say, I love God. No, God is love in a world without God. So I don't find in any other religion something similar. Although I know in Judaism and in Christianity you find wonderful things. For example, in Judaism, my favorite story is, I wonder if you know it, at two places in Talmud, you find something which is incredibly, almost materialist. You find two rabbis fighting. I'm sorry if you know the story. It's two times repeated, once in a serious way, once in a more comical way. They struggle about theological point, and the guy who is losing the debate says, let's call Jehovah. He will decide. And Jehovah, an old man, comes. And then you know what does the guy who was winning the debate, what does he say? These are Jewish sacred writings. He says, not in these terms, I translate it into today's terms, fuck off, old guy. You created a stupid, confused world. We are now desperately trying to make something out of it. Yes. You screwed it up, fuck off. You know how God, Jehovah, reacts? He said, oh my God, you got me, and runs away. This is something that I appreciate. In Islam, it's the same with some elements of Sufi mysticism. But you know what, for me, that's why I consider myself an atheist Protestant. What would you say as a skeptic to this logic? You know, the problem with Pontius Pilatus' wife, she tried to convince her husband, this is a sacred man, Jesus, don't allow him to be crucified, and so on. And typically, Catholics almost, not all, but majority, almost treat her as a saint. Oh my God, she knew Christ was, she suspected it, or she was good, almost a saint. I much more agree with radical Protestant who claims, quite correctly in Paulinian way, Paulinian St. Paul, she was directly an organ of the devil. Why? Because let's say that Pontius Pilate would have set free Jesus Christ. What would then happen? No Christianity, nothing. just one, so that, Christ came here to die, and not to redeem us, but to redeem us in the sense of Holy Ghost, space of freedom. This is why I hope we share this. I am an atheist who finds so many interesting things debated if you read them properly in the theological topic. No? For example, when people ask me, sorry, maybe you know this story, it's crucial for me, maybe you know it. When people ask me, okay, critique of ideology, tell me, which is for you the first book of the critique of ideology? I say book of, how do you pronounce it? Job. The guy.
Job,
yeah, the guy who got, no?
Yes.
And I don't mean this obscenity that at the beginning, basically God and devil have a nice after dinner chat and debate, like how can we prove that people really believe in you? And then the crucial moment is this one. When Job loses everything, then you get ideology. I think it's three. Friends come to him, and each of them has a simple message. No, your suffering has a deeper meaning. Mm-hmm. The first one tells him, even if you don't feel guilty, look deeper, you must have done something wrong. That's basic ideology. The second guy says, maybe it's just a temptation. God is tempting you, and so on and so on. And then a miracle happens. Job denies it. Job is a very interesting figure. He is not passive, let's suffer. No, he is very mad. He said, no, that's all bullshit. And then Jehovah, or how it's called again, comes and says, critique of ideology. All that those three guys were telling you is bullshit. Mm-hmm. You were totally right. It has no meaning, your suffering. So then Job asks God, but nonetheless, why did you do this to me then? And now we come to the big theological point. Jehovah gives a speech which is, I think, usually totally misunderstood. It's usually read as the assertion of a radical gap between us humans and God. All that stuff. Where were you where I created these, that, like, I created so many great, like, we are not on the same level. Mm-hmm. But my beloved Catholic, a genius, Gilbert Keith Chesterton, he has a short text, you can get it on Google immediately, on his reading of Book of Job. His reading is wonderful. He said that if you read it between the lines, Jehovah's answer to Job is, you think that you are something special, look around. It's not only you. I screwed up all the work of creation. It's all one big mess. You see, one can learn so much from intelligent theology, even predestination. My good friend who recently died, Fred Jameson, said, and it surprised me because before I understood it, that predestination is the most precious category for every Marxist. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't simply mean everything is decided in advance. It means that with our activity now, we are reinterpreting, recreating a certain vision of the past. Predestination doesn't mean it's decided in advance. It means that the true change is in changing the past itself. Because I'm referring here to another conservative, T.S. Eliot, the famous line of him where he says, with every really new big work of art, not only a new era begins, but all the past, its meaning changes. And okay, I could go on here, but it's time for me to stop into where I find parallel between this and quantum physics. So I am for this much more modest pessimist stance. There are mega horrors in the world. I don't simply believe in any progress, and Christianity just means all we can count on is our love, our solidarity. I spoke too much.
On the minor point of Pilate's wife, I find this interesting, right? To the extent with which you associate with the Christian story and tradition, Jesus says of Judas that
Judas is the only true hero, friend. It's absolutely clear to me that they made a deal. Basically, Jesus ordered Judas to betray him.
That's one reading.
You have, please. Now I like it. Please attack.
There are some versions of Christianity which think something like that went on, but if you're talking about the story in the Gospels, Jesus says of Judas, it would be better if he were never born. So there's this strange...
How I read it. Sorry to interrupt you. Then you can counterattack. In the sense that Judas is for me the greatest hero. Mm-hmm. He, through his betrayal, enables Christ to do what he came for. So in the sense that Judas is the true hero. He does something that he knows it's the worst crime he will pay, terrible price in whatever. Yes. But he does it because the fate of Christianity, God, his mission, matters to him more. Which is why, don't be afraid, I am for Palestine and so on, all that. But there is a Jewish friend of mine who now lost his job there. He is a good guy, who told me the best, maybe you know it, the best defense of Judas. Mm-hmm. He says, listen, if we Jews know how to do one thing, it is to sell something which we know it's precious for its proper price. And he says, no Jew would sell God for shitty 30-point silver coins. It cannot be, Sorry, but tell me your version. Yeah.
But it's true. I don't think he would have done that. Of course, we don't know what actually happened. But
it doesn't matter. Do you think that any of this, maybe something happened? Maybe
insofar as you're associating with the story, right? Yeah. We know that, yes, I mean, this is a reading that people have, right? That if Judas didn't do this, then God's mission wouldn't have been fulfilled. So in some sense, Judas was like a necessary part of God's plan. And yet we're...
But I feel he knew it. That's why Christ gives him a kiss, and so on. He assumed the most desperate, tragic role that you can imagine.
So why then do you think, firstly, that he was paid for it, and secondly, that Jesus says of him it would be better if he were never born? I'll tell you why I think this happens, and I think this is interesting.
Yeah, please.
Is that you say that, Pilate's wife is an agent of the devil. I think in the Christian story, you can see Judas as an agent of the devil, but you can ask a more fundamental question, which is why does the devil exist in the first place? If God creates the universe, so quite clearly God might have some need for this. I mean, the first name for...
The devil is another name of God for me. I'm here very orthodox. You know who are my source, where the real Christian story begins? Mm-hmm. How do you call them? From Meister Eckhart to Jacob Boehme, these Rhenian mystics. Mm-hmm. They were the first to really break out of this benevolent image of God and to admit that there is a terrifying evil aspect in God himself. You don't need dualism. And our great writers knew this. For example, why do I like Franz Kafka? You remember in the castle, there it's not Joseph K, it's just K, how do you call it, he measured land, no? Mm-hmm. He once tries to approach the castle, but up on the mountain, but the closer he comes to the castle, the more he thinks this is not a great castle, it's just some small dirty houses and so on. So the message for me is that God is like, sorry, it will be just a metaphor, I apologize in advance, but in some country, I think it's Chile, I'm not sure, they had a special term I apologize. I consider myself a feminist in advance. But they have a term for a woman who looks nice from 20, 30 yards. And then when you come too close to her, you see she's not so beautiful. With women, that's sexism, but for God it holds, I think. If you come too close to God, you see God literally is devil, is the same. Otherwise, we are again in some pagan dualism. And another, would you agree this? My God, I love this talk. Sorry if I repeat old stuff. Because only we materialists can have real theological debates. Even that's why I go along very well. We have debates with Rowan Williams, with John Milbank, and so on. They would be very angry to say this, but I consider them, in my sense, without knowing they are already materialists. So, again, you remember the debate about 2 years ago or 3, when before Pope Franciscus, the good one, died. This is, for me, one of the worst things he did, with all respect for him. You remember, he accepted the suggestion that we are, how do you call this? Oh God, who is in heaven, blah, 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 this famous prayer, the elementary prayer, that we should change that line and don't lead us into temptation. The idea is that this wounded God, no, he said, protect us from temptation.
Yes, because God does not lead
Are
to
you
temptation.
crazy? My answer is, look, God says don't eat from the, how does it say, from the apple tree of...
From the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah. But then what the fuck, why did he put the tree in the very center of the paradise? It's pure, I lead you to temptation.
For what it's worth, I think that the Italians have been saying "protect us from temptation" in Italian, like since the start. I think it's a suggestion that only the English translation be changed to sort of match that.
Because but I spoke with some real guys who knew the original, and it's not just protect us. It is a stronger meaning, but which is why I think. And here again, I'm a Hegelian. The fall, that's the paradox for me. The same logic as you find all the time in Hegel, in quantum mechanics. We don't have time for what. Isn't the fall something that retroactively creates what you fall from? Hegel's reading is that paradise before the fall, before knowledge, before consciousness, is simply animal kingdom. And then only through the fall you become aware where you have fallen from, goodness.
Yes.
So there is no goodness prior to the fall.
I sympathize with this to the extent with what you just said about the tree. But, no, there's no but this time. There's an and this time, which is that, of course, if the whole thing that Adam and Eve do is that they sin, and the way that they sin is by eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, if they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil yet, then to eat from the tree can't have been evil, or at least not knowing evil. And so it's sort of a retrospectively justified evil, which you have analogized with quantum mechanics.
No, in the sense that in quantum mechanics, I think that we don't have time to go into it now. For me, that's how I read collapse in quantum mechanics. There are two, sorry, I speak now as a Stalinist. There are two deviations, leftist and rightist, in reading quantum mechanics. The rightists are those who try to reduce quantum waves, oscillations, to our ordinary reality. For example, but he was a communist, leftist, but nonetheless, David Bohm, his idea is that there still are particles, and quantum waves are just waves emitted by particles, but the basic element are particles, and so on and so on. Then you have some, I call them ironically leftists, who thinks that quantum waves are leftist progressive idea of flow of production, and then collapse equals alienation, in the sense that a creative process gets falls into a fixed identity. I think it's a false dilemma. I think, as I try to develop in this book, that what they call collapse comes first. I don't buy this pseudo-leftist version that there is a happy domain of wave oscillations, plurality, and so on, and then, my God, I don't know from where you get alienation. And this, would you agree with this? This brings me to a more general point. My friend Todd McGovern wrote a book. I don't fully agree with him, but his basic insight is right, in defense of alienation. And I agree with this at all levels. To do something good, to feel good, to fight for good, whatever, alienation has to be here. Alienation opens up the space for our freedom. And because without alienation, we will be in some suffocating proximity and so on. I think it's the time to turn around the tables here, which is why, let me make a crazy jump to our contemporary society. I hate it when you have racist problems. What I hate is this idea, the logic of integration. It happens, and then you can be from left or from the right. You can be leftist or rightist. You can say they are a foreign body, they don't want to integrate, or as a leftist you usually say, we are not ready to integrate them. But my idea is, fuck it, why should they integrate? There are many people in the world, I hate quite a lot of people, even ethnic groups and so on. Why not? The big problem for me is the ethnic others and so on. They are a vast group. We will never be able not only to understand them, but I will go a step further here. Do we even understand ourselves? I think that I don't believe that the other, now I'm talking about ethnic other, another nation and so on, that they are deep in their own world and we cannot ever be sure did we understand it. No, I think that quite often a distance gives you better insight into it. For example, the example that I often mention in my books is Shakespeare. I think this is pseudo-problematic, this. Without studying all the historical context, can we really understand Shakespeare? No, it's quite clear in Hamlet and so on, for example, the best-known play, that Shakespeare was self-contradictory there. He didn't know. So, to amuse you, it's a nice joke. It will come from a text that will appear in my next book. You know that famous phrase, time is out of joint. I was here to set it straight. But read it properly. How did time get out of joint? For me, Hamlet is the ultimate evil person in the drama. First, I totally buy, did you read John Updike's novel, Gertrude and Claudius?
No.
Which is a total rehabilitation of Claudius. The idea is that Hamlet's father was an evil tyrant. He wanted to kill Claudius, blah, blah. They killed him out of pure despair. And then, that is the final lines of the book are. And then everybody was happy in the land of Denmark. But at the end, and then Hamlet returned from Wittenberg and everything went wrong. You know why? Be careful of something. On what day was Hamlet born? On the day when Hamlet won, Hamlet's father, won independence from Norwegians. And Hamlet is a traitor. I think, remember what happens, nobody noticed this at the end. Who takes over? Fortinbras, who is a Norwegian prince who came there to occupy Denmark. So Hamlet ends with Hamlet liquidating the family there and installing, as it were, a foreign occupier as that, not to mention the obvious feminist stuff. Are you aware how terribly Hamlet is treating not only his mother, but especially Ophelia? I think that the only, and we can see this today better than Shakespeare himself. That's why, as I always repeat, that version of Hamlet that I know is Akira Kurosawa's film from '62, with a wonderful title, Only Bad People Sleep Well. The idea is wonderful. No, really bad people are not, oh my God, you sleep bad, blah, blah. No, they don't care. They are simply evil. If you sleep bad, because of your sins, you are already haunted. So how does Hamlet at the end set things straight? It's a very conservative view. Hamlet's father threw the world out of joint by giving independence to Denmark. Hamlet sets it straight by reinstalling Norway. I love this totally inconsistent but very productive reading. So my point here, so that I don't get lost, is that the same holds for great novelists. Look, what do you know about Ireland? Ireland as a country existed in the 20th century to give birth to Joyce, I don't like Joyce, but Joyce and Beckett. They both had to move outside to do it. Look at Hollywood. Who gave in the 30s, 40s the best image of despair of the American life? European emigrant directors, especially, although now they have a terrible leader, Orban, Hungarians. You know Casablanca, the great movie, directed by Michael Curtiz. You know who he was? Mihaly Kertési, a Hungarian. He even didn't speak English well. He had to have an interpreter to direct. So what I'm saying is that at this level, I agree with my right-wing friend, but he's not an idiot, German guy, Peter Sloterdijk, whose idea is that in today's global society, we are getting too close to each other. My ideal is not in a big block where I would like to live. There are apartments and there is an Indian there, a black African there, a Chinese guy there. No, I want to politely ignore them, we friendly not to each other, and maybe, why not, from time to time we get friendly, but not obligatory. I don't want this pressure. I believe that we not only don't understand others, but even basically don't understand ourselves. And we have to learn to live with this.
We started a little bit late, so I've got permission to go a little bit late when it gets to audience Q&A. People have been submitting questions, and, well, let's just see how far we get.
I'm very sorry for this. I'm disgusted by all this. I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm sure we can forgive you. Upstairs, we were talking about the UK Conservative and Labour Party. Somebody has asked, I'm going to put two questions kind of together here based on what we were talking about. Somebody here asked about the UK's future. They actually asked about the UK's future. They actually asked whether it's the future. But there's another question here, an anonymous question. How do we stop leftist infighting? And based on what we were talking about upstairs, I think I might just throw them both.
You mean this, that immediately after Corbyn and that Indian lady, I'm so sorry, don't take me for a racist, I always, Sultana...
It's not me. It's not my question.
I know it is, but that immediately when they tried to do this new leftist party, there was a split immediately.
Right, yes.
But what I will give you my
How do we stop that kind of thing?
deeper insight.
Yeah.
I think something similar is happening, nonetheless a vague parallel, somewhere more openly, somewhere less openly in many Western countries. What is happening in United States and up to a certain point also in the UK? In United States, in reality, we have 4 parties, or at least agents. We have traditional Republican establishment, traditional Democratic establishment, and then we have, and they are dead. They are living dead. To repeat my old joke, they are alive because they forgot to notice that they are already dead. There is no political life in them. And then you get 2 only living options, in a bad sense also. I'm not for Trump, but it's Trumpian populism and it's so-called democratic socialists. And the problem here is that, of course, these 4 parties don't work at the same level. So what to do politically? On the right, unfortunately, Trump occupied the Republican Party. It's almost nothing. On the left, the meaning of Mamdani's victory, and I think there are big troubles ahead, but nonetheless, something unique happened. He followed Trump. You know, the big democratic trauma of the democratic establishment in the United States is, let's not move too much to the left, because then we will lose center. But why didn't they learn from Trump that it's the exact opposite which is true? How did Trump win? Not to play the center, but to state radically what is to be said. And Mamdani got this, even maybe more than Bernie Sanders and AOC. That's how you win. This is why there are then all possible combinations. For example, the guy who is disgusting, but I appreciate him, the Trumpian leftist, Steve Bannon. He said already years ago that the ideal government for the US would have been a coalition of Trumpians and democratic socialists, because they all are, in some sense, revolutionary. They want a substantial change. Why I make this ambiguous statement as if I like Trump? I follow here I agree with him, not everywhere, Varoufakis, who said the left was blah, blah, talking for decades. We have to move out of global capitalism. Trump did it. Are we aware what Trump did? With his tariffs and so on, he broke all the rules of a global market and so on. And so where do I see hope? What Mamdani did, I think he's following Bernie, who said something absolutely ingenious already more than Bernie Sanders, already more than 10 years ago. He said, we shouldn't worry about the center. We should target poor white farmers, workers, who otherwise vote for Trump. They are our public. We should target them. And I think this is what Mamdani did. And he won in a quite surprising way. I simply couldn't believe it, how with all the Jewish, not all the Jews, many Jews supported Mamdani, but the Jewish establishment, enormous amounts of money and so on. So this is, I think, the future. The true elections at this point in the United States would have been the elections between Trumpians and democratic socialists. It is not a statement of preference of value. They are the only two living political options. And here in the UK, it's similar. First, when I met Corbyn at Hay on Wye, we just chatted for 10 minutes. He laughed and agreed with me when I told him, you have a very strange political constellation now here in the UK. You have one big center-right party in power. It's called Labour Party. Then you have some crazy right-wingers and small groups and whatever remained of the Conservative Party. And I said this in a very evil way. What's the main distinction? It's that, apart from Rachel Reeves and some others, if you want white male to rule you, you have Labour Party. If you want blacks, women, Indians to rule you, go to Conservative Party. It's a very complex situation. So let's be frank. The only true elections here would have been Farage against the new Labour Party. But in those cases, I see big problems. Because in this direct confrontation, there will be strange alliances. Did you see with Mamdani the scandal of Trump supporting a Democrat, Cuomo? So there will be strange alliances. The problem is this one, to decide at what point should we risk the serious left, our own party, or to work within the established party. I think Mamdani was right at this point to remain within the Democratic Party. He should now make a good Stalinist perch of Democratic Party in the state of New York, getting it over, and then connect with many other states where democratic socialists are because you know what's so ridiculous? When Trump said Mamdani is such a pure communist, sorry, are we aware where we are? Measured by what social democracy meant when Harold Wilson was here on the glorious days of Swedish social democracy. Measured by those standards, what Mamdani is doing is very modest. But you know what gives me hope? I loved the period of COVID. Not only because I'm getting old and bitter and hate people and I was able to be alone there, but do you notice the miracle of COVID? A big lesson for the left. Even guys like your Boris Johnson or Trump, they were doing measures which, I'm sorry, were almost formally radical socialist, even communist, elements of this, how do you call it, income for everybody.
Universal basic income.
Yes,
right.
There were elements of this. Okay, Trump also gave a lot to big companies, but nonetheless, every family got regularly a check for $2,000 and so on. Now, why is this important? Nobody or few people noticed it. Till that point, when you, as Mamdani is doing it now, when you said, why don't we raise the taxes for the rich just a little bit? No, the system will collapse and so on. But you know what happened in the time of COVID? All the rules were broken. Even Trump evoked that law from early 50s where it says that in the critical situation, the government can order companies what to produce and so on. So I think this is the great positive lesson of COVID. You can do radical things. If you do them in the right way, no, don't be afraid. It's not necessary that there will be chaos. And in this sense, I remain, as I say ironically, moderately conservative communist, no? By communism, I mean there will be new crises, I'm sure, worse than that one. Nuclear war, ecological crisis, artificial intelligence, whatever you want. And we are here still, if I may conclude, at the level of my good friend Alenka Zupančić, part of my Stalinist Lacanian Troika in Slovenia, Mladen Delar, Alenka, and me. She published a short book called Disavowal, claiming that today it's too simple to ask, do you believe in God or not, or what? A typical attitude is this: I don't believe it, but secretly I believe it, or the other way around. Let me give you a personal example that I love. It happened to me. I will be caught in ideological shit. I remember, very traumatic memory. Years ago, I was sitting at a table with a friend who pretended to know to read your destiny from the lines in your palm. And I said, what a bullshit. And then my God, he was bright. He asked me the right question. He said, okay, if it's bullshit, allow me to do it. And I said, no, I don't want to. Because it's bullshit. But he told me, but if it's bullshit, why be afraid of it, no? You know it's bullshit. He caught me. Although I rationally knew that it's bullshit, I was afraid that something will come out there. And I think that's how politics works today. It's not just that we pretend to believe but really don't believe it. And here I agree with your agnostic stance. It's much worse. Many people pretend to be cynical skeptics and so on, but de facto in their acts they believe. So my position of the God is dead doesn't mean let's be cynical, there is no harm. No. It means active engagement. In my next book, there will be, I like so much popular movies, another popular movie called Munich, not Spielberg, but about 38 negotiations between Chamberlain and Hitler in Munich. There is a debate between an English guy who says we should negotiate endlessly, there is always hope, and then a German guy, more radical, anti-Nazi, says, beautiful definition, hope is for those who are too lazy to act now. Hope is somebody else will do it later for me. So the absolute condition of being active now is to abandon hope. For me, the best political motto is the entrance to Dante's hell. Lasciate ogni speranza, leave all hope, those who enter. That should be today's politics. I don't believe any great vision. Hope through political act begins in total despair, in the sense of we don't know where we are, it's lost, so let's begin somewhere. And let's begin with what? Here I'm totally a pragmatist. Everything is possible. Alliance with conservatives to fight this danger, to fight that danger, and so on. I think that precisely this sense of confusion today, that we don't even know where we are. I will conclude with a joke which I'm absolutely sure that most of you know, but it's my favorite joke lately because I invented it. I even declared it's already in some of my books. You know, it's an old East European joke, and I rewrote it to fit today's situation. I'm sorry if you know it. The three big guys today, Putin, Xi the Chinese, and Trump, confront God. Each can ask a question. First, Putin says, how will it be? We will occupy Ukraine, we will be masters of Europe. God says, unfortunately, maybe we'll get Ukraine, but in 10 years from now, you will be a Chinese colony. Putin turns around and starts to cry. Then he asks, we will get all of Russia. We will be, God says, it's not so simple. Maybe you will get Russia, but economically it will not work well. You will have not to occupy Taiwan, but to rely on Taiwan and so on. He turns around and starts to cry. Then Trump, probably you know if you are minimally Hegelian, in Hegelian reflexivity, what will be the end? Trump says, so what will be with my great America 10 years from now? God turns around and starts to cry. That's what I meant by death of God. Trump is something so new, it's desperate. He changed the rules radically. Let's use the opportunity. Instead of this fixation of how horrible Trump is, which is a lie, I think. Yes, Trump is horrible, but he is horrible because he correctly detected what was the fake in the predominant American welfare state model. Please hit back. I don't feel...
Well, you know, earlier you were describing yourself as somewhat Christian in the sense that you're a Christian atheist, that you identify with something about Christianity, and then you say that your political motto is to abandon hope.
Yeah.
And you draw from imagery of literally entering into hell. You can understand why some Christians might look at
no worry,
because
that's how I read. That's how I read the death of God.
Yeah.
There is no heaven. There is nothing up there. We are abandoned to ourselves. And as many very intelligent theologists, I have some strange contacts in Norway, of all places. Incidentally, I like Norway for very filthy reason, but good. They know that Norway is the only remaining welfare state, because they had enough, not so much oil as natural gas and so on, they can do it. So they claim that God may be in heaven, but Christ belongs to hell. Christ works in hell, together with all other sinners, showed that some of them even proposed a wonderful formula. Better with Christ in hell than with God in heaven. So in this sense, I don't see a problem. Mm-hmm. The message of Christ is despair, but despair in the sense that there is no hope, but in the precise sense that we cannot count on any big other, on any big vision, just in this sense.
So we've got maybe 5 minutes. I can squeeze two in here, and that the first question I'm just interested in is someone has asked how you feel about us having more comfortable chairs than everybody else. As Calvin.
You know, this is the question where one can only answer with half obscene jokes. Sorry, suck you. You sit there and listen, we are doing the work up here. So yes, we deserve better care. I feel quite well. And it's the same or I would be more hypocritical. Since I have this high senator status, with Lufthansa, I can, even if I have the cheapest ticket, I can check in first class, even if I have economy ticket. And there I feel compassion. I like so much to take a look at economy checking, where there are a long line of people, and I feel such sympathy for them. Why? Because I'm not there, because I'm here. So it's the same with me. Be sure I feel a deep sympathy for you there. Yeah. No, but quite seriously, let's make a more serious point. Do these middle-class leftists who, if you get some money, it makes them feel guilty, do they know how alienated they are from ordinary people? All so-called ordinary people that I know, and I have very good relations for them, they don't have this attitude, no, you can have money, grab it, spend it, and so on. They appreciate money. I hate these deep proverbs like, money is not all. Yeah, you can say this when you have enough money. I mean, you know what I mean. we can really, not in any deep moralistic sense, learn a lot from ordinary, so-called, it's the wrong term, ordinary people. Sorry, let's go.
Finally, briefly, if possible.
Sorry?
Briefly, we're running out of time. But
I know, but that's why I talk so much, so that with all hypocrisy, I can say now, oh, I would love to go on for 2 hours and so on. No, but I'm already thinking how nice we... Sorry, please.
I'm interested in ending where we started and coming full circle. Because the first words out of your mouth prompted me to think of a question that was submitted quite early. And we've talked about Christianity and religion, and one of the things that's missing perhaps from the analysis thus far is this idea that's quite important to religion of afterlife. And somebody has asked, as an atheist materialist, at least in the sense of what happens after death, how do you find peace with death from that perspective, knowing that consciousness...
You know which category is here my key category? It's a wonderful category. I think I explained this in my books 10 years ago already. In Kant, you find I'm sorry, some of you know this, you find a wonderful distinction, I'm so sorry, between negating a predicate and asserting a non-predicate.
Yes.
For example, if I say, you are dead, if I say you are not alive, then it means you are dead. It's unambiguous. But if I negate a predicate, assert a non-predicate, if I say you aren't dead, sorry, I made a mistake, it means you are alive. But if I say you are undead, it means something much more horrible. We're in the domain of Stephen King and so on. Undead, zombies, and so on. And my idea is that, it's very paradoxical, explained in my other books, that what Freud called death drive has nothing to do with this nirvana bullshit, we appear in the void. It's this obscene undeadness. And so I think the proper materialist stance is not just to say we are all mortal, we will die, but to assert, not as that there really are ghosts, but as Lacan says so wonderfully, being subjects already entails a symbolic death, in the sense that you maintain a distance from your immediate animal awareness and so on. So, as Lacan puts it, when he speaks about the second death, this second death is our normal life. In some sense, being a human being who dwells in the symbolic order means, in some sense, that you already are a fallen being, you died, and so on. So it's crucial for me that a certain mode of undeadness, which is horrible, is what pertains to human subjectivity. And in this sense, I'm not afraid of death. I think the true trauma is this undeadness, spectral life, which is our everyday life in which we live. And here I see, we don't have time for it, a danger of artificial intelligence, that this perverted undeadness will flourish. Just think about, I wrote a short text about sexuality. It's already happening. If you combine immersing yourself in digital world with connecting machines with your erotic centers and so on, we will be able soon to have extremely intense orgasmic experiences But maybe even without dirty dreams, without representations, it will just be there, and this will be something horrible for me. This will be close to undeadness.
On that, yeah.
I really said that we didn't have even more time because I think, seriously, you are onto something with your cosmic skepticism. You know what would be? Please allow him to finish, Dean. One thing I don't get quite clearly about your view. I hope you are not just cosmic skepticist in this usual sense, reality is out there, but we cannot ever be sure if we got it, and so on. The lesson of quantum mechanics for me is what is, in some sense, and I found this expression with some top quantum guys, what is reality itself has an inbuilt skepticism, in the sense of it is this, but maybe it's not this, that a certain skeptic uncertitude is inscribed, it's objective out there. It's not that reality is out there, we cannot ever be sure, did we get to know it, and so on. How far are you ready to go into this?
Well, the truthful answer, even if we weren't over time, is that the reason I called my channel Cosmic Skeptic is because I thought it sounded cool when I was 17.
Sorry, because?
I thought it sounded cool
Yeah.
when I was a teenager.
So how are you now when you are mid-50s, or what I would say?
We're getting...
No, because again, where I agree with you, sorry, I hope we're not losing time, is that you have to, I want to save you from this cheap, usual skeptical attitude. We are all manipulated today, we don't know. No, I think, or people say all this manipulative, no, more than ever today, those in power are afraid of truth. The lesson of Lacan is not, we cannot ever be sure if we reached the truth. The lesson of psychoanalysis and of Hegel is the opposite one. It's even no matter how much you try to lie, you cannot get rid of truth. Truth will return in a symptom in your sleeps and so on.
I have to insist, you will be outside signing books, I understand, if people are interested in getting that done on the way out, but...
Just please, I'm tired, don't do this. Oh, professor, if you call me professor, oh, professor, could I just ask you a question? You know what's my usual answer? You can, but a question to which the answer is yes or no.
The signing is down here, not out the front. Sorry for those at the back. But I'm going to insist that that is where we leave things. Ladies and gentlemen, Slavoj Žižek.
Thank you very much. No, just to conclude, I'm so glad for this debate with you because you are aware of something, that we live in an era of confusion where philosophy, we need philosophy even if in our daily life.
Yes.
Like abortion, yes or no? Oh, you have already to decide, is an unborn baby, we need thinking today. I'm here against Marx, you know my joke. Marx said philosophers have only interpreted, we have to change. No, in 20th century we tried to change the world too much. He's right, it's time to interpret it.
Thank you, everyone.